This episode of the Capsule in Conversation is brought to you by Harrogate Springwater. Harrogate is the home of the British Spa and Britain's premium natural source water. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Capsule in Conversation. I'm Natalie Anderson and today I'm joined by presenter, author and entrepreneur, the fabulous Andrea McClean, to talk moving on, mellowing out and melting through the menopause. So settle down, turn us up and get ready to join in with our conversation. Hello all, I hope you're all well and have had a fabulous week. I have just about managed to erase the toll of the winter lockdown and I'm ready to start a brand new month and a brand new phase of the year. And someone else who's also stepped into a new phase recently is today's very special guest. She's a stalwart of daytime TV anchoring Loose Women and GMTV, a Sunday Times bestseller, and in more recent times, the founder of online empowerment community This Girl Is On Fire. She's the good girl who's been making waves for women and the menopause for the last 5 years. It's the amazing, it's the wonderful Andrea McClean. Hi, Andrea.
Oh my goodness, can you just follow me around? That's amazing. What an intro. Thank you so much.
That's you. That's who you are. You know, I'm so glad that you're with me today. It's such a real joy to have you. So thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. I mean, how are you doing? The last 12 months has been pretty seismic for everyone. But for you personally, you've made some huge decisions in that time. I mean, you've obviously moved away from Loose Women very recently. And how are you finding both adapting to kind of the new normal and your actual new normal?
The past 12 months has been pretty seismic for everyone. It's this time last year, the whole world went into lockdown. And like many people, my world changed in an instant. Obviously, all my other work disappeared, like it did for so many people. I had been working on a book which was all about what it's like to overcome burnout, breakdown, toxic relationships, things that really weren't working in my life, and the tools that I'd managed to find to overcome all of those things. So I was in the middle of writing a book. And so for me, 12 months ago, I thought, right, okay, this is what's happening. The kids had always laughed at me that if there was ever any kind of apocalypse, I would be the one that would be the first to go, because I'd be the one running around waving my arms in the air going, ah! But actually, when it happened kind of in real life, I really surprised myself by how I reacted, because I became very practical, and all it became about was protecting my little unit, just making sure everyone was fine. So as long as I knew, right, the kids are okay, they're homeschooling, suddenly the house is very crowded. My husband, who's used to working on his own at home all day, suddenly found all these people around, so that was quite hard for him. So I dragged the laundry basket into our bedroom, plopped the laptop on top, and carried on writing my book, and managed to get it finished. And it went on to become a Sunday Times bestseller, it's just so wonderful. It was so wonderful, because what I didn't realize is everything that I had experienced the year before was everything that people were experiencing now. And so I was able to sort of offer up tools and tips and also personal experience. But what that led to was I'd already been running the site This Girl's on Fire for, it's coming up to 3 years now. All it was a free online blog, because I'm much like you, when I hear great information, I want to pay it forward. I want to pass it on. I want to help women just feel better about themselves. And hey, guess what I just heard? Take this. And that's what I was doing. So it was totally not even non-profit. That we didn't have a bank account. It was just a company that we started as an umbrella term for this online blog. But with the success of the book, and also the way the dynamics had sort of changed during the pandemic and that everything was stripped away, it really got me asking myself some really deep questions, as in, okay, I'm 50, I'm turning 51 this year. This is proving to me that you get one shot at life. And there were so many decisions that I'd wanted to make, and I'd been waiting for the right moment to come. And I realized that there were all these people who were way smarter than I was, would have made all these forecasts for what was going to happen in 2020 and how they wanted their business to go and this sort of thing. And the rug got pulled out from under their feet. And actually, I thought, if all these people who are way smarter than me were making plans, why don't I just do it now? Because this proves that you don't know what's around the corner. So instead of waiting for the perfect moment, there is no perfect moment. So I came to the conclusion that actually I want to dedicate myself full time to this thing that was happening on the side. And there were so many reasons I kept it to the side. The main one being imposter syndrome. I felt that I know it's my passion. I feel like it's my mission, but I'm too embarrassed to hold my hand up and say, this is what I want to represent now. It's something I've been actually working on for probably 10 years or so with my own work on myself and helping other people. But I was too shy to say, this is how I want to do things. And I realized I needed to take a deep breath and just be brave. So Nick and I sat down and we worked out very logically, leaving a job that you've done for 2 decades and it's all you've ever known, really, to absolutely turn right and do something different is a very emotional experience as well as a very practical one. So we sat down and we wrote, right, what is the worst thing that could happen? Okay, I never earn a penny. We have to sell the house. We may have to sell some children. We could sell the dog. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what is the worst thing that could happen? And we went right the way down through the list. And for me, once I knew that actually I had coping strategies in place for every worst case scenario, and I'd already looked them in the eye and thought, okay, I can live with that. Yeah, I could live with that. Yeah, I could live with that as well. Let's do it. So I jumped, and it is the most euphoric and terrifying experience at the same time, because you feel you jump, but it's like, what if I fall and face plant? But then it's, what if I fly? And I don't know if you can see, I've got this picture just behind me. I'm in my office at home, and it's a quote that it's one of my favorite quotes, and Nick got it made for me one Valentine's Day, and it just says, what if I fall? Oh my darling, what if you fly? And that's become my sort of mantra. So in a very long-winded way, I'm so sorry I give really long answers, that's how the past 12 months has gone, and that's how it sort of got me to where I am now, which is now I hold my hand up and proudly say, yes, I'm a female entrepreneur. I'm the head of I like to call it a gym for the mind, where basically we show women how to retrain their thoughts so that they don't feel stuck and trapped and scared. And I kind of feel like I'm in the front going, follow me, guys.
Yeah, like you're you're the one with the flag. And you know what, Andrea, that's really what I love, and really why I absolutely wanted to talk to you, because it's a very similar audience that kind of we have at the Capsule. And when I've read your journey, starting right back in Trinidad, when you were a young girl and your childhood there, you were out there with your dad. He was an engineer out there, and that's where you spent much of your youth. And then moving back to the UK and going through some pretty horrendous bullying in your teens, in Leicestershire, and that your journey of becoming, like, kind of getting rid of this good girl image of what, like, things that you've referred to as yourself, and coming through to where you are now. Literally, when you've just said that, I've got goosebumps going. I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm so proud of the fact that you've been so open, probably sometimes without maybe wanting to, but being so open about the things that have happened to you in your life, the challenges that you've had. And that's why so many women are coming to you and looking to you for help, because you've lived it and you've breathed it, And I mean, if we just go back to those early years and those early teenage years, would you say at that time you were, I've heard you say before, you were a people pleaser. Do you think that stemmed from those early years of not wanting to be bullied?
No, they stem before that, and it comes from, I think, being the eldest daughter of 2 sisters, being I think it's such a common thing. I had very, very loving but strict parents. So you knew where your pecking order was, as it were. So I was a sensible older sister. So it was natural for me to want to do things well to please my mum and dad. And I learned very, very quickly that that was how you got approval. And I think that's a generational thing as well. If I was good, if I helped with my sister, if I was neat and tidy, if I did my homework, and I grew up never wanting to disappoint them. And I don't see that as that's not a failing on their part. That's just general parenting. And also, my sister and I are so different, and we laugh about it now because Linda actually works with me on this Girls on Fire, which is wonderful. So we work together, and we laugh at how differently we reacted to basically the same sort of parents. She was a lot more mischievous than me and a lot more naughty, whereas I was a lot more straight. So I think it actually stemmed from there. And what's interesting, I lived overseas for all my life until I was nearly 15. And when I walked into a normal comprehensive school in the Midlands, I was a white girl with a black girl's voice. I had a proper, beautiful sing-song Caribbean accent because that was where I grew up. I'd been there since I was literally 4 weeks old. My sister was born out there. We went to normal schools out in Trinidad. So, I used to talk like that. I used to have a real kind of up and down kind of accent. That was my identity. But walking into a classroom in the Midlands, people were like, who the hell are you? And what have you come as? And people don't like anyone who's different. It doesn't matter what the reason is. You could just dress differently these days and you'll get bullied. And interestingly, I didn't get bullied just because of how I looked and how I sounded. Now, bearing in mind, I also had chronic acne. My mum used to cut and perm my hair. So I swear it was like some kind of head chastity belt. My hair was so horrible. She'd cut the fringe first and then perm it. And my mum had trained as a hairdresser in the 60s, but working on old ladies. And she'd never progressed beyond that. So I had old lady nana hair. Anyway, so that was me in the Midlands. I actually started getting bullied because I stuck up for a girl who was being really bullied. And I just stepped in and went, what are you doing? Just leave her alone. She's clearly not ever going to fight you back. Just come on. And that was it. They left her alone and it was me. But I never tried to get on their side, if you like, or because a deep part of me understood why they were doing it. And there was an acceptance to that. And I thought, they don't understand me. And I will carry on being myself because they never will understand unless they take the time to get to know me, which I'm open to. This will carry on. So I kind of accepted it. And what was weird was when the bullies were on their own, I got on fine with them. And I actually liked quite a few of them. But there was one girl in particular as kind of the ringleader who disliked everything about me. But again, I just thought it's just because you don't know me, and this isn't how my life is going to be forever. So I focused on all the things that I really enjoyed, even though they were very nerdy and they got me picked on. I was in the debating team at school. I was in the public speaking team. I was in the drama group. I did local amateur dramatics. I volunteered. I worked for the local newspaper on my free time, doing stuff for free. All the kind of stuff that was kind of right pickings for bullies. And I genuinely didn't care because I thought they're going to pick on me anyway. Why stop? See, now as an adult looking back on a teenage girl having that attitude, I'm amazed.
Yeah,
I don't know where
that
came from. I don't know where it came from because now I look at my daughter who's the same age. She's 14 and she twists herself up in knots trying to, fit in and do all that. And I'm trying to show her that actually if people don't like you, they're not going to like you anyway. So you carry on being yourself. But again, I think times are different. If I could bottle what I had and drink it now as a 51-year-old woman, I wish I could.
Do you know those tools though that you learned at that time? And like I said, even just that kind of going, okay, this is going to happen anyway, so I'm going to put my energy into other things. You know,
Mm.
you've clearly brought them forward along with you on the journey. And you mentioned there about, you know, doing amateur dramatics and being, you know, in like entertainment, I suppose, at school. Did you
Yeah.
have, you know, when you were younger, because you trained to be a journalist, did you have aspirations of being in the public eye or being on television, shall we say? Or was it really just more of you wanted to study journalism? You know, what were the passions?
It happened by accident, but um, I think there are two sides to all of us, and I fed both of those sides. I'm an introvert. I really enjoy my own company. I like being by myself. I feel very uncomfortable in sort of loud, noisy places where everyone's being a bit too in your face. I don't thrive on that at all. But I also love performing, and I've loved since since I was a mouse in Cinderella and had to sing La Cucaracha when I was 6. I've loved being on stage because I love that feeling of, I can still picture it right now. I can literally see the room. And I can remember it was me and someone else had to sing this little song being in Cinderella because I was a mouse. And I remember the applause at the end and seeing all the parents smiling and thinking, oh, this is great. I love this. All you need to do is, you know, learn your lines to your song and perform, and people really like that. That's brilliant. So I did school plays right the way throughout my school life. And then when I went to college, I actually did a history, politics, and international relations degree, but I was in the musical society. I mean, again, how nerdy! But this is the flip sides of my
I love
personality.
it. It's not nerdy. This is my language.
But I was also in the rock society, so we used to go to like these heavy metal concerts, just jumping around and screaming and shouting, and I loved it. Going to see like Bon Jovi and Aerosmith and all this sort of stuff because this was in the 80s. But then I was also in the musical society, and I loved the camaraderie, the teamwork, the absolute joy that comes with putting a production together. And because it was, you know, it was college. It was I went to a poly. It's a university now. You know, we were all involved in painting scenery and da 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 da. I loved it. So it was such great training anyway, in terms of teamwork, collaboration, understanding that any kind of creativity, I like to think we're all cogs in a machine, and every cog is important. It doesn't matter whether you're a big cog or a teeny weeny one. It's everything you do plays into the bigger part. So, but I also I've loved writing ever since I was little. And when I was little, when I was from the age of 10, I used to write my sister's bedtime stories, and I would write her a little story and I would read them to her, you know, I wish I could find them. I don't know where they are, but so I was kind of working both those sides of my personality, but really my dream was to write. And I had done this history and politics degree because I was told it was a good way to get into journalism. But I loved a lot of people on my course, and I loved my course, but there were some people there who were using it to get into journalism, and they were quite shouty and opinionated. And I just thought, if this is what you need to be, this is not who I am. So I went traveling for a year. I worked for a solid year, saving up money. I had 3 jobs on the go at once. I worked in an office during the day, a shop on Saturdays, and a pub at night. And I just spent 1 full year saving. And then I went away and I worked my way around the world as well, working in bars and this sort of stuff. I was even an astrologer at one point. I said yes to every job sort of going. And then I came back, I became a freelance travel writer.
Yeah.
And my local newspaper wouldn't take me on. So I ended up, I applied for a course in London. I put everything I owned in the backseat of my car. My parents were living away and they were abroad. And I lived in a really horrible little bedsit and applied for every job going. Every journalism job going, and I accidentally applied to be a weather presenter.
I was just about to say, and then you come into weather, which is a really, really hard kind of job. You have to know a lot, don't you?
Yeah. And what was so funny was when I turned up and I realized what I'd done, I thought it was so funny because I had just seen the word journalist and not noticed all the other stuff in the job application. Because when you're trying to make it, you're applying to everything. It's like actors saying they can do fencing and horse riding. You know, you're like, yes, I can
I'll do it. I'll learn.
Yeah, I'll do that. And so that was what I did. I didn't get that job, but they kept me on file, and I ended up I did get a journalism job, and it was great, but I actually got promoted too quickly, and I ended up being production editor, which is where you're in charge of making sure everyone's copy comes in on time and this sort of thing. And I didn't like it because there's no creativity in that. And the universe must have been listening, and I got a phone call 2 years down the line. I'm new to this job. Your tape has been handed to me as someone who was good at an audition 2 years ago. If you're still interested, do you want to come in? And I thought, I haven't got anything to lose, so I might as well. And I had already taken the day off because I had a job interview in the morning to work on Just 17 magazine. Again, this is how long ago it was, which I bombed at. I did the worst job interview, and I still feel embarrassed now when I think of it. And in the afternoon, I did the audition, or the interview rather, for the Weather Channel. And I got that job. And I was offered a month's work, and I quit a full-time staff job for a month's work. I just took a gamble, and it paid off.
It really did, didn't it?
I loved it. It turned out I loved it. It was great.
And also, you know, from there, you then move across to GMTV and present the weather, and then move your way up to then co-anchoring, and then obviously move into Loose Women. You know, obviously that's across a number of years, and, you know, that just didn't happen overnight. But as you say, you know, you took that gamble, and you were brave. Again, another moment in your life, Andrea, where, no, I'm doing it, I'm brave. And it's paid off, you know, for you. But obviously, Loose Women is a slightly different kettle of fish, because on Loose Women, it's notorious that the presenters are very open. Now, was that something that at that time you were prepared for? And, you know, did you still feel like, did you feel that maybe you had to put a veneer up, or did you just go into it and think, okay, this is the way it's going to be?
That's such a good question, because I'd spent 11 years on GMTV, and, you know, I had joined as a weather presenter, and then because I'd had this training with the Weather Channel, but then I went to the bosses at GMTV and said, look, I'm actually a trained journalist, and I'm very good at feature journalism. I'm not a news journalist. So what I did was I spent a decade honing my craft in terms of taking the journalism skills that I'd learned, because I'd gone to journalism college. I had, after uni, and, you know, had worked for 2 years, and then I transferred that to an on-skill interviewing. But there's a very different skill set in that kind of presenting to doing Loose Women. So whilst, yes, I knew how to host a live TV show, I knew how to interview people. When you work on a show like Loose Women, you're asked to be completely of yourself, and you're asked to bring your total self to work. Whereas any other kind of presenting, you're asked to do a job. So your job is to interview this person, get the show, you know, on time, to your ad breaks, and do all this sort of thing. So it's like you could be a bank person or working in a supermarket. That's your job. So you don't necessarily tell everybody what's happening in your life at home or anything else. It's very, very different. So when I first joined, I tried to keep that bit going, but it doesn't work. And to be honest, for the first 6 months that I was there, I was so scared. I didn't know why I had been given the job. I didn't think I could do it. I cried every day on my way home from work because I just felt so overwhelmed by how huge the job was. I'd also just had a baby. I went back to work after 12 weeks of maternity leave.
I know that feeling. I did the same, and that is horrendous. It's so hard. I totally understand that, how you would be feeling up and down at that time.
Well, and also I was doing both. For the first year, I did both jobs. So I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning, doing breakfast television, and then literally going straight on and doing Loose Women. And I was still doing night feeds, and we'd moved, and I was in still a fairly new relationship. There was a lot going on. So I cried every day on my way home. And what I actually did, this is where the acting came in, was I pretended every day I would arrive and I'd go on set, and as soon as, the music would start and the lights were on, I would act being an anchor, and I just did what I felt an anchor would do, and I asked those questions, and I was this, and I came out to time because I knew all those skills. And so in effect I was faking it, but it wasn't faking it until I made it. It was faking it until I became it. And then I realized actually it's starting to become, it's almost like learning a dance. It had become a natural thing, and I realized actually I can peel that layer off now because I'm doing it. And it was a real transition, learning how to open up about myself. But I tell you what, doing Loose Women was the best training ever for doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Because there aren't many people who are used to talking so openly about themselves and not being afraid of the fallout. And I've had 13 years of training of doing that. And it's not that you're not scared that people aren't going to like it. It's that you actually accept that some people aren't going to like it, but you're okay with it. And actually that it's built that muscle for me now that, honestly, ask me anything and I'll answer you. Whereas there's a lot of people who are in the public eye where they're so frightened that people might find out that actually they're scared, or they have a past that they don't necessarily want people to know about because it doesn't fit with their brand or anything like that. All of those things are understandable, but I don't have that because everybody knows everything. So actually it's really freeing. So I don't have to hide
and in those early days, as you said then, that's kind of one of the questions I had for you, was that some of your counterparts on the show were louder and very opinionated and, could be quite polarizing. And so did you ever have that moment where you were kind of on brand as Andrea that had come across from GMTV and just really wanted to go, I want to say that? Did you have those moments of quite, frustration as well at times in the early days?
No, because I'm also a Libra. And my biggest problem with arguing is I can always see the other person's point of view. And I might not agree with it, but I can see where they're coming from. And it's really irritating because even when I feel really strongly about something, I go, yeah, I can really see your point. I really don't agree with you, but I can see where you're coming from. And actually that is a perfect personality for being an anchor, because what that means is the brilliant thing about Loose Women is that all of the women are so steadfast in their views, and that's exactly what you need. And I always saw, when I was doing Loose Women, I saw myself as a conductor. So there would be too much noise coming from bass, so you'd lower that down a bit. We're not hearing enough of that, so you bring that up. And it's all about making a perfect sound, so that actually what you're doing is you're bringing in all these different opinions and all these different viewpoints, so that you've brought this well-rounded thing in 8 minutes. And that was how I saw myself. So for me, it was never about what I really thought. It was about what's a gap that needs filling here? What's an opinion that hasn't been put into the mix, so that actually what we're bringing is this well-rounded thing? And yeah, okay, there were some times when I just think, oh, for the love of God, that's just nonsense. But I would only ever bring that out as my opinion if I actually felt that it was a hole that needed filling, and it happened to be one that I had. Otherwise, I found it actually really easy to see lots of different sides and bring those opinions in. The mistake lots of viewers would make is think that I thought those things. I don't think those things. My job is to put those opinions forward. Don't get me wrong. There was a few times the red mist would start to come down, and I just think, oh my God, you're being so rude. For me, it's all about rudeness, not about opinion. It's about rudeness. You can have the most outlandish opinion in the world, but if you put it forward in a measured way, I'll listen to you. I might disagree with you, but I'll listen to you. For me, it's about rudeness. But I can count on half of one hand when I've let the emotion kind of take over. But otherwise, no, I didn't.
And as you just said, then Loose Women can get quite emotional, and you've, as you said, you've shared everything on there, you know, absolutely everything, which has been so brave of you and has put you in the perfect place for where you are now with This Girl Is on Fire. And, you know, as you, and what you just mentioned there as well, bringing different pieces in, what you can share with your platform. Now, as we talked about very early on, when you actually decided to make that big change and go, right, I'm going to now dedicate myself to this whole entity, and that imposter syndrome crept in,
Mm.
how, you know, how have you managed that? Because you know you've got the tools, you know that everything is there, but you still kind of go, oh, I'm out of my comfort zone. How have you managed that?
It's a work in progress, if I'm really honest. And I don't think imposter syndrome ever leaves you. And I think once you accept that, actually it makes it a lot easier, because you don't think that you arrive at this finish line where it's like, oh, I'm done. Oh, okay, now I fixed everything that had bothered me. Whether I still have anxiety. I still have moments where I can feel my mood dip. I have moments where I feel overwhelmed. I have moments where I feel imposter syndrome, but I also have moments where I feel euphoric when it all comes together and it all works, where I feel just such peace and contentment that I'm working in a space that I really love, that I feel so much fulfillment when I see the joy that I'm bringing to other people, and that moment where you see the penny drop and they go, ah, so I just need to do this. It's like a parent where you've taught your child how to ride a bike. It's wonderful. So for me, it's accepting that actually all of those things are part and parcel of your whole experience, rather than when you're feeling so in your shadow side, if you like, which I did when, you know, I had a breakdown in 2018. I get confused now. Is it 2018 or 2019? Whenever it was, a couple of years ago. It's because every sense was overwhelmed and everything became too much. And I think for anyone who's feeling imposter syndrome or all of the things that we've mentioned, for me, the joy that I get is to show that I've been exactly where you are. I know exactly how you're feeling right now, and it gets better. And I'm not saying there's some kind of euphoric utopia on the other side. It's not. It's still life. Actually, nothing changes apart from your perspective. And once you change your perspective, everything starts to click into place. Because I know, you know, I talk about this in This Girl's on Fire, the book. To the outside world, I was absolutely ticking every box when it came to the definition of success. You know, I had this amazing career. I was hosting an award-winning, ratings-winning show, and had done for 13 years. I was the longest serving anchor. You know, I was respected in the industry. I have beautiful, lovely marriage. My kids are all fine. What the hell did I have to moan about? But inside, I was absolutely falling apart. Everything that could be going wrong mentally was going wrong. And I realize now, actually, it did, because your brain is so powerful. I think I actually fell down because some part of me realized I was actually in a position where I was with someone who was strong enough to carry me, whereas I had been carrying everyone else for various reasons through different difficult moments in my life. And again, once I came through that, you're not suddenly fixed, but you have a toolbox. You go, okay, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed now. In my toolbox is to be able to say to the people around me, do you know what, I'm starting to feel like this, so I'm going to need to take a little moment. So I know we had loads scheduled in for next week, but we're going to need to reschedule those things because I need space to breathe, and if I don't, I'm going to fall down. And I think I now work with my husband, which is really testing. And it's really beautiful and it's really empowering. There's nothing more lovely when we're, you know, we're talking about the business and we're, you know, so excited, but then we're also working together. And that's really, those boundaries get crossed all the time. But I think because he saw what happened when I had held it all in and tried to be this good girl, tried to cope with everything, tried to keep smiling, he saw what happened when all of that came crashing down. I'm now able to say to him, I can feel things starting to build a little bit again. So I'm going to need a little bit of space. So I'm going to go for a long walk, or again, it might sound silly, but I'm even going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to sit in the garden. Clearly now it's spring, I can go and do that. But even go and lie down for 10 minutes. I just need to take a little bit of space. And I think that's the most powerful thing that you can do, is speak up. I didn't speak up for years because it goes right back to childhood. I wanted to be that good girl, that older sister who, yep, I can do that. I can handle that. That's totally fine. And I realized I'd become like this kind of brittle Stepford wife who it was short-circuiting.
And it's like, yeah, it's kind of it's like the unraveling almost. You know, ultimately that something will topple and something will fall down. But again, your bravery in actually sharing that, because, you know, the conversation around mental health has changed dramatically in the last decade. But, you know, 10 years ago even, that would have been a huge, I mean, a terrifying thing to even admit. And now, with people like yourself being that brave in the public eye, and in a way, obviously it's not normal, but normalizing it and making it so that other people feel like, oh God, it happened to her as well. You know, I'm not alone. I'm not strange. I'm not weird, because they're the thoughts that happen, aren't they? When you are in that dark place, you do feel very alone, and it's about making people feel part of the group, not isolated, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's again where that muscle that I was building through working on loose women really helped, because I had postnatal depression after having my daughter. So she'll be 15 this year. So it was that long ago. I didn't breathe a word to anybody. I didn't tell a soul. And I remember I broached it once with her father, and his response was not good. And I instantly, it was like a snail poking out of its shell going, I'm actually, and I went, right, okay, lesson learned. You never mention anything. You'll get shot down in flames. Keep it to yourself. And in the end, I very quietly went off to my GP, broke down in total bits. And this was 2 years later. I'd been holding it in for 2 years. And she said, it's very obvious to me that you're suffering from postnatal depression, but I think actually there's a whole lot of other stuff going on. And she helped me. I was put on antidepressants, and actually they were a game changer for me. And I was only on them for a few years, and I'm not on them anymore. But that, I was so ashamed of even going to the doctors and saying it out loud, because they know me at the doctors. I'm Andrea off the telly. And I felt that she would think that I was lying, because you see me every day smiling and being amazing. How can you be thinking that? But actually she didn't react that way at all. I didn't even tell my daughter's father that I was on them, because I knew the reaction would not be good. He just thought I got better, and I hadn't. Actually, I was taking antidepressants, which were my levels were all over the place. And I don't want any woman to ever have to do that. The same thing with having therapy. I had therapy obviously after I had my breakdown, but I put that off for a very long time because there was so much shame surrounded with, why can't you cope? What's the matter with you? Just, pull yourself together. Again, what have you got to moan about? And my family are not the kind of family that go to therapy. We're very much a pull your bootstraps up, or whatever you say, and and do it that way. And when I first told my parents that I'd had it, their reaction wasn't great. But I just kind of stuck my chin out and was like, this is not about you. This is about me. This is about something that I'm going through, and actually it's really helping. So I hope you can see that I know you love me. So if it helps me, then that's all I ask. And now we chat about it, and I've again, it was just something I did for a period of time, but I'm really open about it, because again, I don't want any other, man or woman, to feel so embarrassed about, Googling therapists in my area and ringing up and making that first appointment. Don't be scared. Don't be ashamed. It makes such a difference just having someone to speak to who is not attached to your world. And actually all they do a lot of the time is offer a detached opinion and in a measured way, because they don't have that emotion attached to what you're going through. So I'd recommend it to everybody. I don't know why we're so scared about it.
I think, yeah, it's definitely something that we've all been conditioned with. I remember when I first did my Capsule event, because I'd struggled with anxiety, again, very privately. I never spoke to anybody about it. I just thought, oh,
Mm.
even when I was working in a really high profile job, I was just like, if you mention this, you're a liability, they'll get rid of you. And that's how I
Yes.
felt. That's exactly how I felt. And so I never breathed a word. And that's how I
Mm.
ended
But
up,
Natalie, if I can just interrupt, that's a real fear.
yeah.
It's not that you were overreacting or anything like that. That's a real fear, because there could be someone higher up the food chain that will go, yeah, if she's feeling a little bit wobbly, get someone in who's stronger. And you're, it sounds really un-PC, but this is something that could be very real. So it's entirely justifiable to feel that way.
Absolutely, and that's what I mean. Is I heard these things, these whispers. You do in Teleland, don't you? You hear it.
Mm.
It is a very fickle and a very quite toxic place at times. And so I remember my first Capsule event, and I was on stage, and I said to my ladies that had come, hi, I'm Natalie, and I struggle really badly with anxiety. And literally, all the ladies were like, oh, me as well, and me, and me. And it was the most liberating experience, because what I'd been
Yeah.
holding on to for so long, I suddenly felt like, oh, I'm in a group. I'm not ostracized. I'm not the only one. And so many people from that event actually came to me and said that was really helpful. And that's the same with, like, why I admire you so much, Andrea, is that you do have this platform and have now built an actual community and platform where you're sharing this information, which is so vital and valuable to so many people sitting at home, feeling alone, feeling frightened. And it does take some bravery, but have you found it liberating now that you can go, oh, I don't need to worry about that now? Because not that you don't need to acknowledge it, but that
Yes.
it's out there, so you can live it now anyway.
In terms of that sort of thing, 100%. And I talk about it in every interview that I do. I talk about it when I'm hosting my events with my community, because actually it's a shared experience. The one thing that does keep creeping in, I suppose, that I'm still working on, is the imposter syndrome thing. But I've accepted that will never go. I bet Oprah has moments where she feels like, oh gosh, can I really do this? And then she goes, I'm Oprah. Everyone thinks, oh, just be more Oprah. I am Oprah, and I'm sure she's fine, or whatever. Even funny enough, last night when we were sitting having dinner, my daughter, we were playing some music just on the phone while we were having dinner, and she said, oh, I've had this Beyonce song stuck in my head, and she said, oh, I wish I was Beyonce. Beyonce is so confident. And I said, Amy, if you'd read my book, you'll see there's a bit in there. And I said, there's a bit in there where I talk about even Beyonce isn't Beyonce. When Beyonce's on stage, she's Sasha Fierce.
Yeah.
She's not Beyonce. So all these people, they go, oh, I need to be more Beyonce. Even Beyonce can't be Beyonce. And that is so reassuring. That's exactly the same as you going on stage going, hi, I'm Natalie and I have anxiety. Just knowing that even Beyonce can't be Beyonce instantly calms me down, because it's okay. Everybody feels like this. One of the stories that I shared, I only do this when I'm talking about women, because men kind of go, oh, that's disgusting, is I interviewed Oprah when I was doing Lou Simeon, and I didn't sleep a wink the night before.
I bet.
Because it's Oprah, and Oprah is the queen of daytime TV. Oprah is the most influential female broadcaster on the planet. And you don't want to mess up interviewing someone who is so good at what she does, but also you want her to like you. Anybody that you interview that you admire, you want them to go away going, do you know, you're so cool, you can now be my friend. And there's always that little bit in my head, it's like, maybe it'll happen. And I can remember I didn't sleep a week the night before, and I was so sweaty. And I said to the wardrobe girls, I don't know what to do, because I'm on live TV and I'm gonna end up with these huge sweat rings under my arms, and that's just gonna be so awful. So they went and got some panty liners, and they put panty liners in my dress under each armpit. And so I interviewed Oprah Winfrey sitting there with panty liners under my armpits. But I'm so glad I did, because then you couldn't see the sweat literally pouring off my body. And so I talk about this sometimes when I'm doing events and things, to show to the outside world I was absolutely calm, and I was interviewing Oprah Winfrey, and I knocked it out of the park, and it went really well. On the inside, the sweat was running off me, and I had panty liners under my armpit. That's real life right there. That's how it all is. And actually, if that's what you need to help you go and stick some panty liners under your armpits. Take your shoes off and do it in bare feet. Whatever it is that works for you, do it. And I kind of think it's very disingenuous to pretend otherwise, that actually you're just uber cool and you get it right all the time. Nobody gets it right all the time. Sometimes you can really get it right and all goes well, but there's normally a little bit of grit in there that's in your shoe.
Definitely.
At the same time. You know what
like,
I mean?
I'm just smiling through it. I'm trying to be very professional. Honestly, it's all fine, all fine. Then you come off, you go, ah, you have a breakdown at the side.
Yeah.
I mean, some other things, Andrea, that you've been very frank about is, the menopause. And
yeah.
For me, like, this is an area that I'm really interested in. I'm coming up to 40 myself this year. Perimenopause is something that I really want more information on. I'm like, I don't know anything about this. Nobody's telling me anything. And so, when you find women that actually are willing to talk openly about this transitional phase, it's amazing. And again, that's something that you've been very, very open about. Do you feel it's important to have these more frank kind of conversations to make people feel less afraid of it and going, if it's going to happen, but it doesn't mean that you're old and past it. It means that you're breathing to a new phase of life where actually I'm kind of just as sexy, I'm clever, I'm smart, and I've got so much wisdom. It's important, isn't it?
It is. And what's interesting was I didn't mean to be so open about it originally. That came about, that this was a few years ago. Again, I was on Loose Women, and basically after a lifetime of endometriosis, and I'd had laparoscopies and various things. I was told that actually I needed to have a full hysterectomy. So I was 46, and I was okay with it in terms of I'd had my children, and I thought, well, that I'm fine with that. What I didn't realize actually is what that does is that throws you into full surgical menopause, which is a very, very brutal experience compared to regular menopause, which can be brutal in itself. So, but that was really personal to me. So I told the obviously my bosses that I needed to have this time off. I needed to have 6 weeks off work to recover. And I told the women. And then on the day before I was going to have the operation, Linda Robson said to me, "So what are you going to say on the show today?" I was like, what do you mean? She said, "Well, you're going to be off work for 6 weeks. What are you going to say? You need to say something, or else everyone's going to think you've been fired."
Oh God, yeah.
God, it hadn't even crossed my mind that I would need to say something. And so we were, to me, it felt too personal, and it felt too yucky, because it's a hysterectomy, and we're talking about the menopause, and nobody needs to know about that. And with about 30 seconds left to go until the show came off air, literally it's live, she kind of leaned across and went, "Never mind all that. You've got something to say, ain't ya?" And,
oh, that's brilliant acting there.
And I went, yes, well, actually, this is my last day for a little while, because tomorrow morning I'm actually going into hospital, and I'm having and I was so flustered, I actually said I'm having a hysterecalectomy instead of a hysterectomy. And so I'm going to be off work for a while. And so anyway, okay, and I can hear the counts on my 5, 4, 3, so I'll see you then, bye. And we came off air, and I was like, "Linda." And she went, "Well, you needed to say something. So, and I could tell you weren't going to do it because I know you so well. So you needed to do it." Oh my gosh, Linda Robson changed the course of my life. Within 24 hours, 10,000 women had got in touch with the show. It was like a tsunami of women wanting to know information. And I didn't know any of this until a week or so later. And I just thought, you cannot have a platform like you do and not use it to help. And so I started trying to reply to everyone, and then realized that wasn't going to work. So I thought, right, okay, you're a writer. Write down all the information that you have and put it in book form, so that then you can just go, there you go, and hand it to people. And I was really lucky through the NHS. I was recommended this lovely doctor. Sadly, since then, her clinic has had to shut down because of cuts in funding. But she was an expert in the menopause. So I asked her to come on board. She did all the technical doctory stuff. I did the first person, was my experience. I looked into supplements, diet, exercise, sex, all these things that are all to do with this part of your life, and put it together into a book. And again, that was Confessions of a Menopausal Woman, because it was like a confession to talk about what it's like. And again, so proud that went on to become a best-selling book.
Mm-hmm.
And I unwittingly, for a short time, became like this poster girl for the menopause. And I tell you what, not everybody liked it. And this is what's so fascinating, because you would think that actually the planet is made up of human beings, male and female biology. I know there are shades of gray and everything else, but half the population of the entire planet is going to go through this one experience. If you're fortunate enough to live to that age.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be dead by now. It's because that's why nobody cared about the menopause. You're supposed to be dead by now. That's why nothing's been done about it. But actually, you're halfway through, not halfway done. So embrace it, but be given the information. But not all women liked me doing this. I tell you what, it was very interesting, the response.
Really?
It was just as equal the amount of women who took against me for speaking, not out, but just up about the menopause, as it was men. Men I understood, because I thought they're like, oh my God, I don't want to hear anything about this. But just as many women, what the hell are you doing? Why are you banging on about this thing that is just natural? You're just trying to make money from it. It was very angry, very angry. And the amount of times that I wanted to say, I know supplements that could help you with your anger. You're clearly in need of maybe some deep breath and some ashwagandha. But but there you go. So for me, I just saw it in very similar as I did to this Girls on Fire book about this is what I learned about overcoming breakdown, burnout, toxic relationships, and everything else. It was the same process. It was putting together all the information that I have about the menopause, and there you are, have it all. This is my information about mental health and experiences. There you are. And it was as simple as that. There was no other motive to it. I'm a writer. I enjoyed doing it. And also there are women desperate for information. So there you go.
It was literally, as you just said then, desperate for information, and we do need that information. And I love how you've now combined it all with the platform, with the empowerment platform, which is just brilliant. And you not only, do you talk about mental health, but you do also support female founded businesses, and you have a marketplace on there. And that's really important to you, isn't it? And, tell me about your plans for This Girl is on Fire. What are you looking to achieve with it? Where do you want to go next with it?
Global domination.
Yay!
that's my plan. Do you know what's fascinating is the marketplace idea came about because there are so many women who are just trying to make their way in the world, and they've come up with a clever idea for a product or a service or whatever. And just before lockdown last year, I again, it was, look, I have this platform. I have, hundreds of thousands of followers. The This Girl is on Fire website, as I say, when it was a blog at the time, even then we were getting tens of thousands of people logging on every month from 80 countries around the world. So I thought, I've got this incredible platform. How can I use it to not just give information up, but actually lift women up? So we came up with this idea of launching an online shop, so a marketplace, which supports females in business, which sell products which support women. So it's by women, for women, and this sort of thing. Because for me, it is absolutely vital that women have the emotional and financial freedom to reimagine their future. And the reason I feel so strongly about this is because I know what it is like to be a single parent. I know what it's like to be when you're the breadwinner and you've lost half of everything that you've had, and you are now on your own trying to raise two small children. I know what it's like to live at a bedsit, saving up 50 pence pieces for heat and light. And all you're trying to do is find your way in the world. So for me, economic freedom is something that is so important for women, because unless you have economic freedom, you don't have the freedom to make the emotional choices that you want. There are women stuck in relationships. There are women stuck in environments that actually, if they had more economic freedom, they'd be able to walk away from that. So for me, I see this Girls on Fire on two different levels. I have the membership, which is where I help the community find the sort of, they get the emotional support and the like I say, the gym training for the mind, where you help strengthen the mind. And then in terms of the marketplace, I use my platform now. We've changed it. So yes, you can buy all these incredible women's products on our site. Actually, we have them on there so you can see them. But actually, when you click, it goes off our site. We that's not how we, how we do things. What we do is we push you towards their business. And all I'm doing is utilizing my fame, my platform to showcase, look what this woman's come up with, and read her story. Because to me, I'm so interested in people's stories. Where did they get the idea from? How did they build up their business? And that's what the marketplace is all about, is just showcasing the awesome women that we have. At the moment, it's here in the UK, but my dream is to, and this has been my dream right from the start, is I want to build this platform out so that there is This Girl is on Fire on every single continent. Because, and I think this goes back to my childhood. I grew up in a third world country. I grew up in the Philippines for a little while as well. My parents lived in Africa for a very long time. And so my parents were very altruistic, and we were brought up to give back. And for me, I want to see This Girls on platform, especially in places where women really need the emotional support and the confidence building to let them know, actually, do you know what, I can, but also give them the platform so that if they come up with any kind of entrepreneurial idea, they have the space in which to do it. Because I know it, I've seen it, that women who aren't as fortunate as to live in a country like we do, what they really need is economic freedom to have the emotional freedom that they deserve. So that what I'm doing right now, actually, I have a global plan for it. My dreams are so far ahead. I want to do work in primary schools. I want to catch girls before they get to a point where they're starting to doubt themselves. You see a little girl wandering around in a fairy dress and wellies, she is absolutely confident in herself. Mm-hmm. She knows that she looks awesome, and she loves her wellies and she loves her tutu, but actually she wants to be a fireman. You know what I mean? And I think that if we can catch girls before they start to slip through the net in primary school and in secondary schools, then hopefully that means by the time they become fully grown women and they do have their ideas of their own, they're not battling all these insecurities that they've kind of built up through their lives. So already I've got a few children's books that I've got in my head. We're in touch with some primary schools now, because moving forward, and I would love it to be in place by September, I want to be able to do events and bring some really cool leaders in this field together to do. It will be virtual, because actually one of the great things we've learned through the pandemic is how easy it is to bring people together in a virtual way, and to do school assemblies to show young children, it wouldn't be necessarily just young girls, actually stay really true to yourself. You don't have to change for anybody. Don't let anybody put you down, and build up that self-belief. So that's when you ask me about, what do I see for the future, it's huge.
It's all out there. But the most fascinating thing and the most lovely thing, I think, is like, I'm sitting here now seeing how passionate and liberated it seems you are, and just like invigorated by it all. And is that really how it feels for you? Like, actually, this is mine. I'm at the helm of this brand kind of platform, and actually the world is my oyster.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, it's taken a while to get there. I left Loose Women in December, and obviously the UK was in lockdown. It was winter, it was dark, and yes, we'd set our stall out in terms of what we wanted, but we were still at the very beginning of piecing things together in terms of how the membership would run, and we were changing things in the marketplace. Our climb was like this. I mean, sometimes it was like this, and sometimes it was like every day was dark and raining, and you were trying to climb up a cliff face, and it was slippery, and you just kept falling back down again. And there were moments where it felt impossible, too big. And what's funny is actually nothing's changed in terms of how big it all is. But what I feel now is I've got traction. And I know a lot of that is from in here. And it's because I've stopped doubting myself so much. I think at the beginning, when you leave a job and an environment that you've been in for so long, and for me, it was, I was 23 years at ITV, but 26 years working in television. And not that I've said goodbye to television. If something comes along and it fits in with where I want to go, then absolutely. But it was mentally acknowledging that I was just feeling really scared. And actually, because I was coming at everything from such a place of fear and tentativeness, that actually I was making it a lot harder. Now I realize it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Mm-hmm. And I made a start, and I know that we will just get better and better. And I'll look back at the things that I did at the beginning and think, that was a bit cringy, but at least I started. And I think, again, especially as women, we have this thing that if it's not all perfect and all planned out, then we can't press go. And that's something you need to let go of. Just press go anyway. Just jump. You might face plant, but you might fly. You just don't know.
Andrea, that is such a perfect place to round us off. What an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for just sharing all of your brilliant advice and wisdom, because I already know, like, our listeners will take so much away from today. So thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. And thank you for a lovely interview. I enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, honestly, it's been brilliant. Like I say, just so many different parts that I definitely know. Everyone at home, you're going to love, aren't you? Yes, you are. And now to find out more about This Girl Is On Fire and how you can get involved with the community, then head to www.thisgirlisonfire.com. And if you'd like more wellbeing, fashion and beauty, then you can always visit us at our website, www.thecapsule.co.uk, where you can also catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the In Conversation page and subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. Please keep leaving your rates and reviews. I do love hearing your feedback. And as always, if you're a social butterfly, you can also catch us on Instagram and Facebook at Official Capsule. I will be back next week with another very special guest. So all that's left for us to say today is goodbye. So it's goodbye from Andrea.
Bye-bye.
And goodbye from me. This episode of The Capsule in Conversation was brought to you by Harrogate Spring Water. Bottled at source, Harrogate Spring offers a pure, refreshing taste with a delicate blend of naturally occurring minerals and electrolytes, perfect for healthy hydration.